In America, everyone counts, and the 2020 census is how that great promise is kept. Respond today online, by phone, or by mail, and help inform hundreds of billions in funding for education, health programs, and more. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov.
No charcoal grills are allowed.
I'm white. I got you, bro.
Yeah, illegally selling water without a permit
On my property.
Whoa!
Hey!
You don't live here.
I'm uncomfortable.
Y'all, gunfire broke out while Charles McMillan Jr. and his son and childhood friend Kendrick Clemens were dropping off a U-Haul truck in Tallahassee, Florida. The next thing they saw was an older couple coming toward them, both pointing guns in their direction. The couple ordered them to not move, but McMillan sped off in his truck. The two shooters, Wallace Fountain, 77, and his wife, Beverly Fountain, 72, owned the strip mall where the incident took place and were reportedly staking it out inside another U-Haul truck. According to the Tallahassee Democrat, the couple said they were having problems with people stealing gas, but McMillan and Clemens say they were profiled by vigilantes and never given a chance to explain why they were there. The Fountains were arrested and charged with 3 counts of aggravated assault without intent to kill. These white folks losing their mind, Melody.
They were arrested. They should have been arrested. Whether or not this was something that's racially motivated is, for me, is pretty much irrelevant to the fact that they were actually arrested because law enforcement saw that they did something wrong. So this was one of the instances where it worked as it should have. Whatever charges that need to be filed against him, they need to be filed. But I'm glad that they were actually arrested, and I think you said charged too. So.
It's crazy, deranged white folks. We should have made that crazy ass white people segment. Go ahead, Kelly.
No, I agree. Like, for me, it was the part in the article that I read about this where the charges were aggravated assault without the intent to kill. And last I checked, you don't wield a gun and point it at anybody without an intent to kill. You don't shoot to stop, you shoot to kill. So they just need to revise those charges and then we'll be straight.
Mustafa?
I mean, this is not an episode of the Beverly Hillbillies or Green Acres. You know, you just can't be popping off at folks. You know, they're lucky. They're very, very fortunate that, you know, they fired at certain folks because certain folks would have taken that as a seriousness that you're trying to take their lives.
All right, folks, back to our Roadmark Unfiltered video in just one moment. As our community comes together to support the fight against racial injustice, I want to take a second to talk about one thing we can do to ensure our voices are heard. Not tomorrow, but now. Have your voices heard in terms of what kind of future we want by taking the 2020 census today at 2020census.gov? Now, folks, let me help you out. The census is a count of everyone living in the country. It happens once every 10 years. It is mandated by the U.S. Constitution. The thing that's important is that the census informs funding, billions of dollars, how they are spent in our communities every single year. I grew up in Clinton Park in Houston, Texas, and we wanted new parks and roads and a senior citizen center. Well, the census helps inform all of that and where funding goes. It also determines how many seats your state will get in the U.S. House of Representatives. Young black men and young children of color are historically undercounted, which means a potential loss of funding for services that helps our community. Folks, we have the power to change that. We have the power to help determine where hundreds of billions in federal funding go each year for the next 10 years. Funding that can impact our community, our neighborhoods, and our families and friends. Folks, responses are 100% confidential and can't be shared with your landlord, law enforcement, or any government agency. So please take the 2020 census today. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. In America, everyone counts, and the 2020 census is how that great promise is kept. Respond today online, by phone, or by mail, and help inform hundreds of billions in funding for education, health programs, and more. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. 52 black former McDonald's franchisees are suing the fast food giant, seeking more than $1 billion. They say they were forced to close or sell more than 200 McDonald's locations because of systematic and covert racial discrimination. It is an explosive lawsuit. They say that McDonald's forced them to make changes to improve their stores, things not required of white franchisees. Joining us right now is a former franchisee, Van Jakes. Van, welcome to Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hey, Roland, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. So explain to us exactly what this lawsuit is about. Now, I've actually spoken to the McDonald black franchisees a couple of times last year, previously as well. I've met many of you, and folks always talked about for years how McDonald's was a huge proponent of black businesses and black franchisees really touted the company. Yet this lawsuit says they were systematically denied opportunities.
Absolutely. Roland, when we first got started, we always knew we were behind. We had to run faster to catch up. The only problem we didn't understand, we wasn't running the same race. Instead of running 400 meters, it's 800 meters. And the white operators get to run 400, we get to run 800. What I mean by that is I didn't know until I left the system some of the things that was going on because I was concerned running my race, trying to be as best I could be. And there was a lot of us feeling the same way when we got together and realized what was going on.
So when did you first become a McDonald's franchisee?
I played the NFL for a little bit, had a cup of coffee and a donut for about 6-7 years. And then I became a McDonald's operator in 1992 down in Florida, came to Atlanta in 1994, and I was in here for about 23 years as an operator.
And so when did you stop being a franchisee or an operator, and why? What caused that?
2016, so much required reinvestment, the strain on my body, mentally, physically, from playing football, trying to do second generation. And McDonald's really almost forcing you out because if you don't do it your way, this is either their way or the highway. And then when you realize they didn't do the same thing to our white counterparts, what I mean by that is one store in particular, I reinvested that store 3 times, rebuilt it 3 times. And I seen some stores when I got out of the system, they never reinvested in it once. So that means you can never get out of debt. So it's like a rat race. You can never get caught up, especially now extending the race from 400 to 800 meters, where the white operator, once again, is running 400 meters.
Now explain to folks there, because, again, you hear me saying owner, the official term is operator. And so when you say you had to make these changes, if McDonald's corporate told you must make these changes, you have no option. You have to do it, correct?
Option. Exactly. So, for example, they got something called the National Restaurant Standards. That's what everybody should go by. So whether you buy a store, sell a store, things you have to do. So when I bought stores, I had to do things to bring them up to par. Same thing with the white operators, supposedly, but they had a different system where they were allowed to not do those things, which means you didn't have to take debt and put it on top of debt. So those are the things that really bothered us as black operators, that we were held to a different standard. And we were punished by that, but not getting stores and not be allowed to grow. Then they say, well, you don't have enough money to grow. Well, how can I have enough money to grow? I keep reinvesting in my stores to the point where I can't afford a new store for the opportunity in a better part of the neighborhood. Where the white operators, if you don't make them invest, they pay off the debt, then they have the money to buy another store in a better neighborhood. So they continue to stretch the distance from 400 to 800 meters.
So let's talk about that. And so the suit, it covers franchisees all across the country, correct?
Correct. We really didn't want to do this. We tried to go to mediation because, McDonald's has allow us to do a lot of good things in our families, in our communities, and we want to do the same thing and not to bring this to some of our friends that still own us right now, African American owners. So we didn't really want to do that, but they gave us no other choice. So we're trying to take care of our kids, kids, just like they're trying to do, the white operators. I even had a white operator call me today, a former operator, and tell me, man, you guys are doing, this is a great lawsuit. I will be a witness because I wouldn't reinvest like that. I just told him I wouldn't do it. He had no ramifications. I said, Keith, I couldn't do that. And he said, I know. So, I told the attorney, he said, yeah, we'll use him as a witness if we need to.
So, in reading this, I mean, it really lays out a significant amount of issues. And I've heard from other franchisees who said they want to be able to grow, and then they didn't have those opportunities. Also, they complained when McDonald's allowed white franchisees to open stores near theirs, taking market share, taking those dollars away as well. Those are also things that we heard.
Oh, absolutely. The impact. That was my last straw for me. I had a store about 1.5 miles from my best store, and they didn't know if they was going to give it to me or not. Yet, other white operators, there's no question they're going to get it, no matter what your financial situation look like, because that can always improve if you guys want to really to work with it, if the bar is really equal. But that never was the case, and we realized that the more we got out, the more we started talking to each other because we're kind of isolated. Even my managers knew it. I was like, hey, we got to control what we can control. It's not controllables. I don't know what's going on down the street. But now I got out of the system. I seen what was going on down the street, and it really was disgusting, to be honest with you.
According to the law firm, is James Ferraro is the lawyer, and according to this. This is what he says. The notion that McDonald's is a friend of the black entrepreneur is complete fiction. McDonald's has been hemorrhaging black franchisees for decades due to blatant and implicit racial discrimination. The company will now be held accountable. According to him, McDonald's had a high of 377 black franchisees in 1998. That's been cut by more than half, saying there are now only 186 black franchisees. But while that's the case, according to what he says, meanwhile, over the same period from 1998 to 2019, McDonald's has increased its stores from 15,086 to 36,000. So they more than double the number of stores, yet the black franchisees has dropped.
Correct. That was a way to say the train has left the station. And a lot of us seen it coming, but we worked hard, kept running the race, trying to fight to get caught up, to get our fair, to get parity, but it never could happen the way they had the system set up.
McDonald's, obviously, they responded. They deny these claims. They say that they remain consistent. You said I tried to go to mediation, but it was unsuccessful.
Very unsuccessful. Just a slap in the face. We treat us like we're second-class citizens versus, being proud African Americans that helped grow the brand the way we did. And we're not asking for handouts. We're just asking for them to do the right thing, and so we can continue to do, good works in our communities where we live throughout the country, and then taking care of our families.
So according to McDonald's, they said they have actually been consolidating franchisees. They've said that black franchisees has gone up, making up 13.4% of all McDonald's franchisees to 12.5% of all the U.S. franchises. Chris Kimzinski, the McDonald's CEO, said, quote, "My priority is always to seek the truth. When allegations such as these occur, I want them investigated thoroughly and objectively. That's been our approach to the situation. Based upon our review, we disagree with the claims in this lawsuit, and we intend to strongly defend against it." Your final thoughts?
Well, that'll be good if you can get the facts, and it'll make it better. They've already made some improvements with the current operators. In the history of McDonald's, they never cut some of their rents permanently until we thought about this lawsuit. So we'd have made changes already, and I hope they continue to make changes, and I hope they get to the facts, and they'll realize there was some blatant discrimination going on in the system.
All right. Van, we certainly appreciate you for joining us. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, my brother. Appreciate you.
All right. Let's go to my panel right now, folks. Melik Abdul, Republican strategist, Kelly Bethea, communications strategist, and Mustafa Santiago Ali, PhD, former senior advisor for environmental justice, EPA. Mustafa, I'll start with you. This moment that we're in, this reckoning that we are in, we are seeing African Americans demand equity, demand inclusion, and make it perfectly clear that it's time to deal with economic justice. That's what this lawsuit actually deals with. And on the franchisee side, black franchisees have said, hey, they've been the driving force behind McDonald's. When things were tough, it was African-American consumers who really never neglected and left the company. These franchisees are saying, hey, we've been out there touting McDonald's, stick with us. Now you're stabbing us in the back. That's really what this lawsuit lays out.
Yeah, it just goes to show us that systemic racism exists even in places like fast food. You know, it exists in the financing. It exists in the banking loans that are necessary for folks to be able to get traction. It exists in the priority setting, and also it exists in how folks are setting up criteria inside of their systems to choose really losers and winners. So when we don't unpack this, when we don't put a spotlight on this, and it's unfortunate that there has to be a lawsuit, but if folks are not willing to do the right things, then sometimes you have to go the legal route to get, folks to pay attention and to know that you're serious. They have literally made billions and billions of dollars off of the black community. They have no problem in throwing black faces up on the commercials, but they need to also be making sure that they're honoring those black owners, partners, who are doing the hard work and trying to make sure that inside of our communities that resources are coming back because they're hiring from those communities. So folks just need to do the right thing, and when you don't, it's going to cost you.
Obviously, Kelly, these are allegations. They have not been proven. McDonald's, they say that they simply are incorrect. But what we're seeing now where African Americans are far more focused on going public, filing these kind of lawsuits than in the past. This reckoning that we are in, that we've been in really since the murder of George Floyd, is really a driving force in a lot of these things we're seeing.
But not only that, this has been a huge issue in not only the fast food industry, but in a lot of companies that do these franchising things, and that they should have known. Like in the lawsuit, they say that constructive knowledge should have been implied, that they should have known about the conditions of the building before they were sold. They should have known about the areas that these buildings were in, such that they should have been either fixed or at a lower price for the franchisee. But it's not just constructive knowledge, it's imputed knowledge, because you have McDonald's in the industry, and as a authoritative figure in the industry, they should know these things. But one of the main points of contention that I have, or a point of concern, is the fact that this is in a federal court, and Trump just packed the entire court system, federally anyway, with conservative judges. So this is why this election, not trying to get off topic, but it all ties in together. The fact that this election is incredibly important because Trump already packed these judges. The tenure for a judge on the federal bench is life or retirement. So whoever is going to be presiding over this case, provided that they are a Trump supporter, we don't know how this is going to play out in the franchisee's favor, even though they are clearly in the right by way of these allegations.
Melek.
And this is something that we've talked about on your show, and not just in dealing with, as you noted, operators. As many of us grew up in communities where the McDonald's franchises, it was a big thing to know the owners of these franchises that were in our neighborhood. I know in my own neighborhood growing up, I think probably almost all of the operators were Black. And so that was something that was significant in the community. And it was really good, actually interesting listening to the gentleman when he was talking about how it is really, and I think you may have said that, about how the Black community itself, we are the ones over the years who have been also responsible for the success that McDonald's have had as just a company. So it's good to actually see, not just in this instance, but other instances where Black people are obviously asking for equity and they're not waiting for permission to do so. So I applaud the effort. We'll see what comes out of it. I disagree with Kelly. I don't think that having a conservative versus a liberal on the court is a determinant of the outcome of the lawsuit at all. I think that for the most part, they will go by whatever the law says. And I don't think that politics in this particular instance will play into it at all.
All right, folks.
You're saying that McDonald's itself is not political. This entire thing is political.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I was responding to your suggestion that somehow that conservative judges will not rule in the operators' favor.
I'm cautiously optimistic that these conservative judges will actually go by the law, but if they're appointed by Trump, they are by way, implied a Trump supporter. So you should be cautious about how they're going to rule, because conservative judges line up conservatively like liberal judges line up liberally. I'm not saying that they can't do their job. What I'm saying is we need to keep our eyes wide open when it comes to this case.
Right,
all right,
but
folks.
I just don't think it's a right or a left issue.
Back to our Road Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment. As our community comes together to support the fight against racial injustice, I want to take a second to talk about one thing we can do to ensure our voices are heard. Not tomorrow, but now. Have your voices heard in terms of what kind of future we want by taking the 2020 census today at 2020census.gov? Now, folks, let me help you out. The census is a count of everyone living in the country. It happens once every 10 years. It is mandated by the U.S. Constitution. The thing that's important is that the census informs funding, billions of dollars, how they are spent in our communities every single year. I grew up in Clinton Park in Houston, Texas, and we wanted new parks and roads and a senior citizen center. Well, the census helps inform all of that and where funding goes. It also determines how many seats your state will get in the U.S. House of Representatives. Young black men and young children of color are historically undercounted, which means a potential loss of funding for services that helps our community. Folks, we have the power to change that. We have the power to help determine where hundreds of billions in federal funding go each year for the next 10 years. Funding that can impact our community, our neighborhoods, and our families and friends. Folks, responses are 100% confidential and can't be shared with your landlord, law enforcement, or any government agency. So please take the 2020 census today. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. In America, everyone counts, and the 2020 census is how that great promise is kept. Respond today online, by phone, or by mail, and help inform hundreds of billions in funding for education, health programs, and more. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. All right, folks. Congressman Clay Higgins of Louisiana has threatened demonstrators against police violence in a Facebook post. On his personal verified Facebook page, he posted a picture of an armed black militia group that protested the police killings of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. In addition to the photos, he posted a status that's read, "Look, fair warning, if this shows up, we'll consider the armed presence a real threat. We the people of Louisiana. One-way ticket, fellas. Have your affairs in order. Me, I wouldn't even spill my beer. I'd drop any 10 of you where you stand, because some of we, like me, we are SWAT. Nothing personal. We just eliminate the threat." Higgins is a vocal advocate for gun rights and has been featured in NRA promotional videos. The post has been removed for breaking Facebook's violence and incitement policies. He's been called out, Reese, by Congressman Cedric Richmond. This is a Republican, a sitting member of Congress, saying, "Oh, if you actually practice your First Amendment, I'm going to grab my gun and I'm going to practice the Second Amendment."
As far as this degenerate, I have to say, you ain't gonna do shit. All you're doing is sitting up there on social media running your mouth. However, this is the Republican playbook now. The white nationalist party playbook is to incite violence, even though these people don't have the balls to pick up a gun and do a damn thing. What they are is they're inciting people like Kyle Rittenhouse, who's a 17-year-old degenerate himself, to pick up arms and feel like they can go and inflict violence on protesters. And so that's where the real danger is. And I mean, it seems to me that with this Congress, anything goes. I mean, do people even get censured anymore? Is there ever any punishment for anything under the Trump era? I don't know. But my concern is we're seeing an increase of this kind of rhetoric that we know it tends to have an almost immediate impact in their white nationalist supporters actually following through with these kinds of threats.
Look, Greg, take it away.
No, brother. You know what's crazy about it And you know, it's funny. Cedric Richmond's a good brother. You can tell when he get mad because he just going to go straight hood on it. But Reese had it right. He ain't gonna do shit. But you know what's interesting about this guy? He's a former cop, Clay Higgins. He was on the Opelousas police force, and he was charged with assault. And his fellow cop lied for him. That cop that lied for this punk is now on his congressional staff. See, this again, this is only going to stop when we stop it.
There you go.
Cedric Richmond frustrated. I mean, but this guy, he's talking that, like Reese said, I wish he would go down through Opelousas or Lafayette. I know a little about Lafayette and Opelousas. One of my best friends was on faculty at Southern. His wife is from right down there.
Hell, my grandparents are born and raised in Opelousas, Louisiana.
So you already know about that. You talking that stuff, big boy, big Clay? Why don't you get in your car and ride on down through there tonight? And get out your car and decide which 10 you're going to send. And be very clear about it. That's where we're going to find out what kind of man you are. But we know you ain't no kind of man. Reese done already said what it is, brother.
Look, that's the kind of nonsense. And again, you're not going to find any Republicans say a word, Erica, put one of their own in check, because this is who the Republican Party is.
Yeah. Acquiescence has its privileges. And so though he may not do anything, he is a part of a militia of slave patrol officers who actually telegraphs to other people. And so those who do this and enjoy the blood sport, like the white domestic terrorist Kyle demonstrated, that they will be inspired by these words and they will take action. So is that person merely being a mouthpiece to continue to telegraph white violence and rage? And we're going to continue to see this if, as Dr. Carr continues to say, there has to be a point where we have to stand up, because that is the only way, not the only way, but that is one of the ways that we'll see these cowardice messages that are posted from people who we're paying their salary. And so to the point that we're actually paying their salary, that they're actually inciting violence and being paid for it by us is insidious in and of itself. So to where they see that there's actually a response to their ignorant, mediocre type posts, then we'll continue to see this behavior accelerate.
All right, folks, back to our Road Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment. All right, the folks at Seek.com, black-owned company founded by Mary Spiel. They've had a couple of great products we want you to check out. This is their virtual reality headset, which, of course, allows for you to watch the content on Seek.com right through your phone. Check it all out in virtual reality. In addition to that, you can also look at 360-degree video on your phone as well. And so that's what this particular headset is. You just simply take your phone, drop it right into the headset, and that's it. Then, of course, you have their 360-degree 4D headphone, which is right here. Of course, Bluetooth enabled, tremendous bass sound. You hear the sound all around. Also, gamers usually got a headset used for that as well. And so you can get one or both of these products or subscribe to Seek.com by going to their website, Seek.com, Seek.com, with the promo code. Come on, guys, show it, RMVIP2020, RMVIP2020. And so go to Seek.com. And so we certainly appreciate Seek being a partner here at Roland Martin Unfiltered, and of course being the sponsor of our bi-weekly tech segment. In America, everyone counts, and the 2020 census is how that great promise is kept. Respond today online, by phone, or by mail, and help inform hundreds of billions in funding for education, health programs, and more. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. Well, the Jacob Blaze family, they held a peaceful gathering to keep the focus on getting justice for Jacob. It was held in the neighborhood where he was shot 7 times. Faith leaders and elected officials attended the event and speeches were given. The event also included a community cleanup, a healing circle, and a voter registration booth. Local businesses provided food and services. Guys, roll a video. Yeah, Donald Trump wasn't going to that part of Kenosha. Joining me now is Kendall West and Raymond Roberts, both of them in Kenosha, the African American Club there. Glad to have y'all both here. Kendall, I want to start with you.
Having us.
Did y'all hear from the White House? Did the White House reach out to say, first of all, we saw one report where the White House announced that they reached out to Jacob Blake's family's pastor. They came out and said, we don't have a pastor. So who y'all talking to? And so the incident, the reason we're even talking about Kenosha, even if you want to complain about cars being set aside, businesses destroyed, that was all precipitated by the violence against Jacob Blake. Donald Trump didn't want to address that at all. This is really nothing but a big old show to boost up law enforcement, which is really him saying to white people, I'm with y'all.
Well, we had a peaceful protest or peaceful gathering at the Black Party for Jacob Blake, which had all of the things that you had discussed earlier, voter registration, there was food, there was dance, there was bounce houses, there was paintings. We want to focus on the unity of our community, and was hoping that would shine through.
Raymond, this is again, he comes there, does a round table with law enforcement, not community people. Doesn't do anything with community folks to talk about police misconduct. No, it's all a big law enforcement prop.
Absolutely. We talk about this a lot. This is one city, but it's definitely two communities. So that's what you saw today. You saw the outright demonstration of two communities, where even though the damage happened mostly in our community, that's not where the president went. That's not the people he spoke to. Even the business owners that were surrounding him, the business owners in our community, even the ones that don't look like us, they're with us. One of the buildings.
So hold on. Who are those people with him? Who are those people?
That's a good question. That's a real good question.
So you're saying the people who own the businesses in the black part of Kenosha that was devastated, they weren't there?
No, absolutely not. Those people were there in the events that we've been having. In fact, again, the Danish Brotherhood. So their building was completely demolished. Instead of joining Donald Trump, they had a benefit not for themselves, for the community. They held a fundraiser for the community. So even the business owners that lost buildings, that's the kind of behavior we've been seeing. So we've been focusing on relationship and community and connection.
And so would you say that this walk around really was about, because look, in all of his talk, really was all about appealing to white voters, saying I'm tough on crime and I'll be the one to keep everybody straight?
This was a very specific type of white voter, because again, at our events, you didn't see just black people. You saw black and white. Now, what you saw at Trump's event, that did have a very clear-cut look. So it's not all whites. It's just a particular group that believes in what he believes in, which is the opposite of what we're about. But to your point, when you look at that audience, we don't recognize them. They're not from the area. They keep saying the same narratives, and these narratives are easily proven to be false.
Kendall, go ahead.
Yeah, I can definitely echo exactly what he said. From my vision, those people, the human beings that are out there with us in our community, we don't necessarily have a color, a shape, or anything like that. We just know that our group is stronger together. So that's essentially it.
This is some video here, some Black Lives Matter protesters, turning up folks, walking through the Trump supporters there in Kenosha today. I get a kick out of the folks sitting there talking about all lives matter, which also means Jacob Blake's life matters.
Absolutely.
Well, no, it doesn't. Not to them. That's why they spit it right back at you.
To us, absolutely, because I also believe that all lives can't matter unless Jacob Blake's life matters. Thank God he's still here with us. All lives can't matter unless Black lives matter, unless the community, all those who are inside of the Kenosha community, unless their lives matter to everyone that was at that stage rally, then I guess we'll have to see where that goes. But for the most part, I agree with all lives mattering as long as it includes all of us.
Well, we clearly know that was not the case. And so, gentlemen, I certainly appreciate you and what you're doing. Thank you so very much for your work there.
Thank you so much.
All right, folks, back to our Road Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment. As our community comes together to support the fight against racial injustice, I want to take a second to talk about one thing we can do to ensure our voices are heard. Not tomorrow, but now. Have your voices heard in terms of what kind of future we want by taking the 2020 census today at 2020census.gov? Now, folks, let me help you out. The census is a count of everyone living in the country. It happens once every 10 years. It is mandated by the U.S. Constitution. The thing that's important is that the census informs funding, billions of dollars, how they are spent in our communities every single year. I grew up in Clinton Park in Houston, Texas, and we wanted new parks and roads and a senior citizen center. Well, the census helps inform all of that and where funding goes. It also determines how many seats your state will get in the U.S. House of Representatives. Young Black men and young children of color are historically undercounted, which means a potential loss of funding for services that helps our community. Folks, we have the power to change that. We have the power to help determine where hundreds of billions in federal funding go each year for the next 10 years. Funding that can impact our community, our neighborhoods, and our families and friends. Folks, responses are 100% confidential and can't be shared with your landlord, law enforcement, or any government agency. So please, take the 2020 census today. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. In America, everyone counts, and the 2020 census is how that great promise is kept. Respond today online, by phone, or by mail, and help inform hundreds of billions in funding for education, health programs, and more. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. Franklin Graham did an interview with CBN, David Brody, and if y'all want to hear really what it sounds like to be a white preacher on crack, okay. I'm sorry. I have absolutely no respect for Franklin Graham. I mean, I have none. Okay, and I don't even give him any respect as a preacher or a spiritual leader. I would never sit under him. He is a gross, pathetic hypocrite. And listen to the bullshit he spewed.
And taking us into socialism is going to affect the church. The government will begin to tell the church how they can be the church. And they'll close the church down in many places. We see right now, because of COVID, the government trying to tell the church that they cannot meet. And the Constitution gives us that freedom to do that. But because of COVID, they said we can't meet.
I have asked before about, has God put Trump in office for such a time as this? And there are many folks that believe, obviously he has. What happens if he loses?
I think God brought him here for this season, for these 4 years. I'm just asking that God would spare this country for another 4 years to give us a little bit more time to do the work before the storm hits. And I believe the storm is coming. And you're going to see Christians attacked. You're going to see churches closed. You're going to see a real hatred expressed toward people of faith. That's coming. And Jesus told us, he said, you will be hated by all people because of me. And if we're going to stand for the name of Christ, the world will hate us. And that's coming.
It's like Trump is like trying to hold back what you're talking about here.
Well, first of all, God uses men. He works through men. Yeah. And I believe Donald Trump is the president for a reason. I think God has put him in this position, and he is. He is Western civilization as we have known it. He is defending that.
Reese, God don't use you. You a woman. According to Franklin Graham.
God is sexist, apparently. You know, he said the storm is coming. The storm has been here for black people for 400 years. Okay, so I don't know what the hell you're talking about. What's coming? Because we've been in the middle of the storm. We're trying to get the hell up out the storm. And I just want to go back to something Dr. Carr said a couple of weeks ago. And I'm adding my own spin on it, but black people, do not underestimate these white folks. Do not underestimate these white nationalist people. I feel like a lot of people are just real comfortable. I feel like a lot of people are like, well, it doesn't matter. 4 more years of Trump. My vote don't count, this, that, and the other. Do y'all not see the escalation that's happening in front of our very eyes? I mean, most of us were not around when black folks were getting, strung up by trees and lynched. But they're bringing it back. It's just now they have bags over our heads, or now they're just shooting you in the face. It's a different form of lynching that's still not a federal crime, thanks to Rand Paul and the white nationalist party. And so, as Dr. Carr said, listen, you got 2 options. You can vote and try to hold on to this very fragile, loose idea of what we call democracy, or you're going to have to take up arms. I don't think we have enough guns, black people, and we don't have the aim. And so maybe what we need to try to do is do what we can over the next couple of months to work this ballot box and try to work these elected officials and try to work this election and try to make change the nonviolent way, because I don't think we're going to make it if we have a full-blown race war, because we just don't have enough guns. And y'all ain't stockpiling the guns to make me feel like y'all are ready for the next chapter. So please get out there and vote. Please just do that. That's not saying it's going to solve everything, but you have to snap out of this complacency, because these white folks are not playing. And if they get another 4 years, I'm really, really concerned.
Erica, these white conservative evangelicals, they see this man as the second coming of Jesus Christ, even though he is the devil.
So let's stop calling them Christians. They are Pharisees and Sadducees. They are legalists. Also, they care nothing about people outside of who they believe should be in control. They're white supremacists because they believe themselves to be more supreme than God. And to me, for them to continue to use this cloak, this shield of Christ and of Christianity and what that is supposedly supposed to mean, that is even more damning. For them to actually do all of this damage and to then on the other side, because this is a part of their Christian faith, this is what they believe. If they're actually believing on the Lord Jesus Christ, who has hair like mine and is bronze, if they're actually believing on him, for them to create all of this chaos, to create everything that is antithetical to the Old Testament and the New Testament, and then go before him and hear, "Depart from me, I never knew you." That's who they are. They have made their covenant. They have made their pact, and it is very much so anti-Christ. So I think that the continued presentation of these white people who are using their religion as a way to cloak or a way to kind of dress up their continued belief in racism, their continued belief in that white is the answer, that white is right, is really a disservice to people who are believers, to people who do believe on the tenets of Jesus Christ, who do believe that that is their faith and that is their walk and that is who they're walking with and have built relationship with. So I believe that to reframe them, that they are actually a part of a cult, that they are people who have made a decision, that they are in line with this authoritarian who comes off more like Saul, who, David, the most revered man in the Bible, some would say, that David is actually had to fight him for 13 years because of his jealousy and his anti-godness.
Greg, bottom line is this here. Franklin Graham is operating in the same tradition of these white evangelicals who use the Bible against black folks, who justified slavery. This man had nothing good to say about Obama. He didn't care that Obama was a Christian. He kept insinuating that he was a Muslim, did not care that Obama prayed. He trashed him at every turn. And so I have absolutely no respect, no regard for Franklin Graham. In fact, let me go ahead and say it. The only damn reason Franklin Graham assumed control of the empire of his father's empire is because of his genitalia. The reality is this here. The actual better preacher in the family is Ann Lutz, his sister. If Ann Lutz wasn't a woman, she would be the one who would have been the heir to the empire of Billy Graham. And I'll go ahead and say it. Yes, Franklin Graham, your sister can out-preach your sorry behind any day of the week, and she has more credibility than you on anything, on any day. Pick any one that ends with a Y.
Hey, brother, that white patriarchy is a hell of a drug. I don't know what's up with these second generation white boys between Falwell and the Pool boys and the young girls and this crazy Graham. It's par for the course. And I think that everybody should join the Bring the Funk fan club, and you should make your tithe now, because you heard the sermon delivered by Erica Savage Wilson, who is just helping that these people are not Christians. Because, Mr. Graham, if you have read that Bible instead of going by it on the way to your white, remember the Ku Klux Klan was founded as a Christian organization. Ku Klux Klan is in the same tradition as Smiling Mike Pence with his idolatry. And I'm glad you call them Pharisees and Sadducees, sis, because America's not mentioned in the Bible. However, if you listen to Smiling Mike Pence last week at Fort McHenry, he took a biblical scripture and basically said, look to the flag instead of look to the cross. And said, that's all you need to hear about these people. They are not Christians. If you read the Bible, if you're going to talk about a political economy it operates by, if you even want to say that, is a socialist document. Jesus Christ, he's not no capitalist. He's a socialist. If you want to look at the policies of feeding the poor, clothing the naked, making sure the hungry have something to eat. This is all things they would call socialism. But when Franklin Graham says the storm, see, that's a phrase that comes out of that QAnon BS. And they're saying when he says the storm, and remember that fool down there in Texas who's over the state Republican Party, a black man by the name of Alan West, saying, oh, well, we just took We Are the Storm from a poem. No, you took it from something Donald Trump said in 2017, surrounded by generals, when he said maybe this is the calm before the storm. When they say the storm, that is code speak for the coming confrontation between their forces and who they see as their enemies. That's why Mickey Pompous was standing on that roof in Jerusalem. He's no ally of Israel. He thinks he's going with the biblical playbook, and there's going to be an Armageddon and the Antichrist is coming back. That's why Franklin Graham is talking about the storm, because they look at this as a holy war, but they frame it as a holy war in the same way those white boys who opened that Bible on Thanksgiving weekend in 1915 on the top of Stone Mountain and put that sword over the Bible and then lit a flaming cross and pledged themselves to defend what they perceive their version of Christianity. That's what they all meant. They are not Christians. They are not Christians. They are white nationalist idolaters, and they are embrace something that Jesus Christ himself, if he were here, and you're right, Reese, you better hope he don't show up while you were talking all this smack, because you ain't got a lot of splaining to do. But if he were here, he'd be on the opposite side.
That's right.
All right, folks, back to our Road Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment. All right, the folks at Seek.com, black-owned company founded by Mary Spiel. They've had a couple of great products we want you to check out. This is their virtual reality headset, which, of course, allows for you to watch the content on Seek.com right through your phone. Check it all out in virtual reality. In addition to that, you can also look at 360-degree video on your phone as well. And so that's what this particular headset is. You just simply take your phone, drop it right into the headset, and that's it. Then, of course, you have their 360-degree 4D headphone, which is right here. Of course, Bluetooth enabled, tremendous bass sound. You hear the sound all around. Also, gamers usually got a headset used for that as well. And so you can get one or both of these products or subscribe to Seek.com by going to their website, Seek.com, Seek.com, with the promo code. Come on, guys, show it, RMVIP2020, RMVIP2020. And so go to Seek.com. And so we certainly appreciate Seek being a partner here at Roland Martin Unfiltered, and, of course, being the sponsor of our bi-weekly tech segment. In America, everyone counts, and the 2020 census is how that great promise is kept. Respond today online, by phone, or by mail, and help inform hundreds of billions in funding for education, health programs, and more. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. Folks, it is 61 days until Election Day. And, of course, our goal is to get you focused on that. Make sure you go to vote.org to double-check your registration, to register to vote. You can also fill out the 2020 census. Why is that important? Because of this. In 2019, Georgia purged nearly 200,000 people from the rolls in error. The American Civil Liberties Union of Georgia released a report by the Palace Investigative Fund titled Georgia Voter Roll Purge Errors. The report concluded that the state has incorrectly removed nearly 200,000 Georgia citizens from the voter rolls in 2019. The state's removals are likely to affect the most vulnerable. Joining us right now is Greg Palast. Greg, glad to have you back on Roland Martin Unfiltered. 200,000, that easily sways an election.
You think losing 200,000 voters might affect the election? Yeah.
In a massive way.
Exactly. And I'm going to tell you something else. I know you'll be shocked to hear this, Roland, but of the 198,000 people that they've wrongly removed, overwhelmingly young people and voters of color. So, you know, are you shocked?
No, I'm not shocked. In fact, when you talk about those young voters, I have been telling civil rights groups when they've been talking about voter suppression, don't just talk about it in the framework of just people of color. They've got to be telling white folks who are young, hey, they're targeting you too. In 2012, a county clerk in Wisconsin admitted moving an early voting location off of a college campus because too many of those young whites were voting Democrat, and she moved it to a far out place, which made it harder for them to be able to get to. We've seen the same thing happen in North Carolina. And so I've said to young white folks, y'all are part of voter suppression as well. So that's also why I keep telling people they have to check their registration, Greg. Go to vote.org to double check it, because the problem is, and give us your site as well, because people are assuming, oh, no, I'm good. And I'm like, no, you got to double and triple check because they might screw you.
Well, if you are in Georgia, I really want you to go to this website. Now, pay attention. It's savemyvote.org. Excuse me, savemyvote2020.org.
Savemyvote2020.org.
Yes.
Got it.
You can also go to my name, gregpalast.com, and we'll link you through. Look, here's what they did. They said all these people moved. 300,000 people. Well, where are the moving trucks, Roland? Atlanta should be emptied out if all these people left. So I was suspicious. So I hired the post office's experts. The post office has people that are licensed to go through address change. The state didn't use the people that the post office licenses to tell you where people live for sure. And by the way, that's in the law. But, you know, what does the federal law mean in Georgia? They've ignored it. As far as we could tell, they found these addresses, I don't know, in a cereal box or something. But all I can tell you is they have very effective at removing voters of color and young people. And 200,000, yeah, that's going to affect November. I'm very worried that people think that they can vote, because remember, if you're purged, that is, you're erased from the voter rolls, and it's in Wisconsin and Georgia and Michigan and many, many states. But if you're purged, you're not getting that mail-in ballot. You can't mail in your ballot if it's not mailed to you, and that's part of the trick. And most people have no idea that they've lost their right to vote.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. Well, and we see, again, how they're playing games with it. We're seeing right now what is happening. Look, the Republicans, and I have no problem saying it, they want to shave off thousands of votes because they know they're not growing their party. If they can depress turnout, 1, 2, put all these barriers in place, 3, we see what's happening with the post office, and then even if people do vote, they're going to be looking for every single error. I've got folks now, Greg, who are saying, Democrats, forget mailing your ballot, strap up, get fully loaded, and vote in person, because they're going to be targeting those mail-in votes.
Yes. Let me explain something. 22% of all mail-in ballots never get counted, Roland. That's the MIT study. 1 in 5 ballots don't get counted. Now, there's ways for you to avoid having your ballot canceled out on you. Number 1, make sure you're registered. You're not getting that ballot if you're not registered. 1 in 10 people who ask for the ballot don't get them, or don't get them on time. So ask, like, right now.
Yep.
Like right after this program, you go and ask for your mail-in ballot if you want it now. And you mail in at least a week, and preferably 2 weeks early. And then if you have healthy friends, they should go in and be poll watchers for the vote count, because you're right about something. When ballots are mailed in, about 1 in 8 mail-in ballots is challenged. They don't like your signature. 100,000 people lost their vote for postage due. In fact, signature, 141,000 ballots were thrown out because of suspect signature. Now, were there 141,000 fraudulent, felonious forgers who stole ballots and forged your signature? No. No one, not one person was arrested for forging an absentee ballot, but they disqualified 141,000. Be very careful how you fill it out. My sister, who's a lawyer, lost her vote, her mail-in vote, because she didn't properly fill in the bubble next to her candidate.
Wow.
Follow the instructions. And in many states, by the way, you're going to have to have a witness. In Alabama, 2 witnesses, or you're going to have your ballot notarized. So you might be right that the best thing, if you're safe enough, if you are young enough, healthy enough, bring your hazmat suit and an umbrella and some food, and get ready to wait 4 or 5 hours in that line to vote. But I would rather you vote early when there's no lines.
Yeah, right.
Okay? Understand there's no lines in midweek when people are at the early voting stations. Almost every state has it. And a lot of states let you fill out an absentee ballot and then bring it in so you don't have to go through the post office. Get your ballot, fill it out, bring it in, put it in a drop box, your county elections office, or take it to the polling station midweek during early voting. There's no one there. It's safe, it's quick, and you don't have 4 hours in line on Election Day.
Greg Palast, I appreciate it. Again, go to gregpalast.com, GREGPALAST.com. If you are in Georgia, to double check to make sure that you have not been removed from the voter rolls. And is it SaveMyVote2020.org?
Exactly. SaveMyVote2020.org.
Okay.
You got it right.
All right. Greg, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
You're the best, Roland. Bye.
Thank you very much, sir. Robert, I want to start with you. You're there in Georgia. Stacey Abrams constantly talked about this in her race against Brian Kemp. This also, though, is not just Georgia. That lawsuit, when it came to purging people from the voter rolls, which the Supreme Court allowed, which they allowed to go through, which is interesting because when it came to the gerrymandering case, they said, hey, we don't have any role when it comes to political gerrymandering, but they allowed that to go through. There was a white guy who sued in Ohio, which opened the door to voter purges, where they say, hey, you haven't voted in 1 or 2 elections, we can remove you from the rolls. We have to get our people to be constantly in a state of mind, check your registration, because I had a frat brother who texted me, he voted in the primary this year. Watches this show, he's in Arizona, went back, he wasn't on the voting roll. He re-registered.
Well, Roland, on that point, I think part of what we have to do is look at what Republicans do. They are playing chess at a very high level. They plan these things out 5, 10, 15, 20 years ahead of time. We were fighting back when I was in college in Georgia, marching against the voter ID laws, fighting in 2010 against reducing the number of days for early voting, fighting against the restrictions on absentee ballots. So what we have to start doing is thinking about these things strategically and not figuring out 60 or 70 days before the election that the game is about to be rigged. We are going to have to get these Democratic groups and these left-leaning groups to put the necessary money into elections, put the necessary money into getting people to fighting against voter suppression on the far term, and not simply waiting until a couple months before to understand the game is being rigged against us. And in the meantime, we have to put the money into community-based organizations that are fighting to protect the vote.
Brianna? Can't see you. Can't hear you. I'm sorry, but can't hear you. I think you're muted. Unmute yourself. There we go.
Georgia, there we go. Sorry about that. Georgia's under Republican control. It's a laboratory for stealing democracy at this point. And it's crazy to think that nearly 200,000 people in Georgia were removed from the voter file under the pretense that, they had moved. In fact, that they did it. It makes up 63% of the people who are removed as registered voters. That's scary. And, who gets held accountable for this? Absolutely nobody. We've seen it now over and over and over again. We've seen it in different states. It's going to get worse. We need a lot of people on deck. I do like the suggestion. I know more states were ramping up of putting drop boxes instead of mailing. But Republicans, have been targeting disenfranchisement for a while. That's how Stacey Abrams lost her election, little over 50,000 votes. And Republicans control the state. And so it's even crazier that, the reported number of voters who are legally removed to be even higher, as this number doesn't include those who moved within their district, who actually did move. And so someone, could have moved from apartment A to apartment C in the same building, and Georgia would have removed them from the list of registered voters, which is insane. And so we do need to make sure that we're equipped. I think it's, I can't remember, but I do know that there's now a store that's going to have their workers be poll workers. We need more poll workers.
That's the gap. Old Navy. I'm sorry, Old Navy.
Old Navy, yes, absolutely, Old Navy, and that's very important because a lot of the people who were poll workers previously were old, and they may not be able to be around people as much. And it's very, very important to make sure that we're protecting the vote. There's people to make sure there's no voter intimidation. And so we've been ramping up on that. And I think it's very important to make sure today that you go to make sure that you're still registered to vote, and that you, that if not, you get registered to vote, because in some states, starting this month, you're going to receive a ballot if you're doing absentee. It seems like it's early, but for some states, it's really not. It's almost voting time. So we need to make sure that we're on the rolls and that we can vote.
Scott, bottom line is this here. Again, part of our job is to ensure that you don't get caught up in the web. So to Greg's point, 22% of mail-in ballots are getting thrown out. Bottom line, if you're going to vote by mail-in, check everything. Check full name, check your address, do everything exactly the way it's supposed to go to ensure your ballot is going to be counted.
Yeah, I listen to all of these messages, and they're all out there, and we're all saying the right thing. I often wonder how many people of your frontline voters or your average voter are really listening, right? They say to themselves, how hard can it be to vote? I got it. I'm going to cross my T's and dot my I's, and I'll get there, and so forth and so on. And I guess my message to them is that, no, this is not going to be easy. We're running against three different opponents as Democrats. We're running against the GOP and Donald Trump. We're running against foreign interference in our democracy. The reports have come out on that. And then we're running against voter suppression, not only in swing states, but all around the country, and not just in the South. And so the Democrats, regardless of us being up 10 to 12 points, if you will, or even 7 points, run and vote like you're down 7 to 10 points. Vote early, do it the right way. Or as he said, I love the idea of your last guest. He said, fill it out, right? And take it down early in the middle of the day when nobody's there and do your early voting. That's a perfect scenario for those who may be elderly, those who are middle-aged, and even young people, despite COVID. And it's healthy, too, if you do it that way with your mask and what have you versus these long lines and stuff. We got to pay attention on this one, right? Because our life and our future and our future of our country literally depend on it. And so we've got to treat it that way. And I hope everyone watching and their families treat it that way because it's super serious business. It is nothing to sleep on.
But here's the deal, though. Robert, they are listening. They are listening. I mean, I get the emails. People have gone back and checked. But here's the piece. You got to do it every day. Look, mainstream media, they aren't doing what we're doing, okay? They're not doing this, all right? Mainstream media, that was that case at CNN. They were working on a voter suppression documentary that was going to air in October. I was like, what the hell are y'all doing? The registration's already passed. I'm like, you should be working on voter suppression stuff long before the registration deadline. No, this has to be a constant deal. We got to, every single day, every person who is listening, the more than 4,000 people who are watching live on YouTube, the more than 1,000 people who are on Facebook, the people who are on Periscope, you got to, again, all I'm simply saying is, folks, it takes 2 minutes. Go to vote.org, double check, make sure you're still registered. If you're not, click the registration. You can register right there. We have to be in that constant state every day, Robert, every day, every day, every day.
Well, a big part of it is understanding
Robert, go ahead.
A big part of it is understanding demographics. We're talking about Georgia. Let's remember that Georgia is a state that is 35% African-American. That's 10% Latino. That's 5% Asian-American, 52% females. Everybody knows Atlanta has a humongous LGBTQIA+PK plus population. But instead of us harnessing that, instead of us focusing on making sure we can get those turnout numbers, often what the Democratic Party does is try to get those South Georgia farmers in Cairo who voted for Jimmy Carter and think that they can get them back to voting Democrat. No, focus on getting the people who like you to get out there and vote instead of trying to find this elusive white working class vote, as Donald Trump says, suburban wife, to come back over to the party. Focus on the people who are going to vote for you. Put out messaging that motivates them, and more importantly, ensure that you can get all of their votes counted. That regardless of what the rules are, know what the rules are, and then put money into getting those people to the ballot box. It's not that hard, but for some reason, I think Democrats are wed to this idea of the 1950s that the truck drivers and factory workers and the white working class voters are going to come back to them. When you can, if you double down and investigating African Americans to support you, putting in messaging, putting in the dollars, then you can win with that.
All right, folks, back to our Roll Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment. As our community comes together to support the fight against racial injustice, I want to take a second to talk about one thing we can do to ensure our voices are heard. Not tomorrow, but now. Have your voices heard in terms of what kind of future we want by taking the 2020 census today at 2020census.gov? Now, folks, let me help you out. The census is a count of everyone living in the country. It happens once every 10 years. It is mandated by the U.S. Constitution. The thing that's important is that the census informs funding, billions of dollars, how they are spent in our communities every single year. I grew up in Clinton Park in Houston, Texas, and we wanted new parks and roads and a senior citizen center. Well, the census helps inform all of that and where funding goes. It also determines how many seats your state will get in the U.S. House of Representatives. Young black men and young children of color are historically undercounted, which means a potential loss of funding for services that helps our community. Folks, we have the power to change that. We have the power to help determine where hundreds of billions in federal funding go each year for the next 10 years. Funding that can impact our community, our neighborhoods, and our families and friends. Folks, responses are 100% confidential and can't be shared with your landlord, law enforcement, or any government agency. So please, take the 2020 census today. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. In America, everyone counts, and the 2020 census is how that great promise is kept. Respond today online, by phone, or by mail, and help inform hundreds of billions in funding for education, health programs, and more. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov.
I'm going to tell you what I really think of Donald Trump. He lies practically every word that comes out of his mouth.
Donald Trump is everything I taught my children not to do in kindergarten.
I think he's a kook. I think he's crazy. I think he's unfit for office.
Guys, we have a con artist as the front runner in the Republican Party.
You know, Donald Trump the other day said that, quote, if he tells a soldier to commit a war crime, the soldier will just go do it.
Are people eventually going to say, does the emperor have any clothes, or does the emperor have a brain, frankly?
For more than a decade, I was President Trump's right-hand man, fixer, and confidant. I was complicit in helping conceal the real Donald Trump. I was part of creating an illusion. Later this week, he's going to stand up and blatantly lie to you. I'm here to tell you he can't be trusted, and you shouldn't believe a word he utters. So when you watch the president this week, remember this. If he says something is huge, it's probably small. If he says something will work, it probably won't. And if he says he cares about you and your family, he certainly does not. He's going to tell you that if you re-elect him, the economy will bounce back, that only he can get us out of this economic crisis.
I alone can fix it.
Maybe for those like him. But if you think he cares about working class Americans, you're dead wrong. The president is going to talk to you about law and order. That's laughable. Virtually everyone who worked for his campaign has been convicted of a crime or is under indictment, myself included. So when the president gets in front of the cameras this week, remember that he thinks we're all gullible, a bunch of fools. I was a part of it, and I fell for it. You don't have to like me, but please listen to me.
All right, gotta admit, out of all of those ads, it was interesting looking at all those different ads. The one, Melik, that I found most entertaining was the one of Nikki Haley and Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham saying, don't believe nothing Donald Trump says, he's a liar as well. But then, boy, you flip it, oh my God, he's the greatest thing since Jesus. So which one do you believe? The true feelings, or the one after he won?
Well, the idea, Kamala Harris was just chosen as Joe Biden's VP, and she thought that he was a racist. So
no, hold on. I'm sorry. Stop. Where does she say that?
Oh, I'm sorry. She didn't say that he was a racist.
In fact, what did she say?
She said that he supported segregation.
No. You said Kamala Harris thought that Joe Biden was a racist. Did she? Wait, one second. Did she specifically say during the debate, Joe, I don't think that you're a racist?
Well, I don't think that most people.
No. Hold on. Wait. No. Hold up. I asked a question. I asked a question. I asked a question. Can you answer the question? She did not use the word. But did Kamala Harris say to him, Joe, I don't think you're racist? Yes or no?
No, she did not say that he was a racist. She did. What she said, what she actually alluded to was the fact that he was a segregationist. That's what she said. Now,
okay. First of all, again, hold on 1 second. No. You. 1 second. You stated something that was false. She specifically stated.
No, she didn't say
so here's the deal. Don't state something false and not think you're gonna let loud just say it. You say something that was false, but go ahead.
Well, Roland, we know why you're choosing to correct.
No, I know. Melik, it's real simple. Melik is real simple. It's real simple. No, Melik, this is very simple. If somebody makes up something and it's false, On this
That
show,
doesn't fit your narrative.
no. On this show, they get corrected. Now, I know that it
not
doesn't
true,
work that way at Fox News, but if you make,
I've never been on Fox News, so I don't know.
if you make a false
I've been on
statement,
your show since
if you make
2018, and I
a
do know
false
how that
statement,
works.
if you make a false statement, you're going to get corrected. Now, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I've been on your show since 2018, so I do know how it works. And you correct things that don't fit your narrative.
No, actually,
no,
I correct
Kamala
people
Harris,
when they're wrong.
Kamala Harris did not use the word racist. What she said was that she was that little girl, and because of policies that Joe Biden supported, that everyone, I won't say everyone, most people will connect to being an actual racist.
Like I
so
said,
maybe you think that segregationists means something else, but the thing is that despite what Kamala Harris said, despite what Kamala Harris may have said, we have Joe Biden's 40 plus years in the Senate to actually talk about. And we know whether it was his crime bill, whether there were many things that he said that's come out of his mouth, Joe Biden will have to answer for that. So it doesn't matter how many ads, great or bad, the Lincoln Project or other groups push, Joe Biden is that candidate, and he will have to defend himself.
But Brianna, here's the deal. When you play those videos and when you hear Lindsey Graham calling Donald Trump a kook, when you hear Ted Cruz saying nearly everything that Donald Trump says is a lie, when you hear Nikki Haley assailing him as well, these are people who are being really honest about Donald Trump until they decide to sell their souls. Your thoughts about that ad?
I have a lot to say about the ads, but I have to specifically talk about what Malik just said. So Trump's position that the Central Park Five should have been executed. So Biden has evolved, and Trump still stands by his position.
Yes, and by the way, he doubled down on that in the 2016 election, even when presented with the facts of them being exonerated. Go ahead.
Yeah, and they were children. So, Trump thought black children should be put to death. So, if he has people in the party who think that's okay to argue for black children to be executed by the government, then they don't have the moral ground to stand on when it comes to talking about Biden. So you could say that Kamala tried to infer, even though, as Roland stated, she literally stated, and I was in the audience as a DNC member, she literally stated, I don't think that you're a racist, Joe. And then she went on to say other things that she felt disagreement with. However, we now have Kamala Harris as our VP, and there to protect us and try to push a lot more of our agenda and make him a better person. And so to see that or to say that about the contrast, I don't think you have a valid point for the RNC. But to focus back on the ads, I mean, most of those ads are common sense and very factual. And unfortunately, that also means Trump's base is less likely to listen to it, as we just heard a comment of, Biden and Kamala. So, I think that one thing that it does show is that Joe Biden clearly has a coalition of people of all across different political spectrums. He has moderates, conservatives, democratic socialists, and they're all working together to defeat Trump. So it's a good show of unity.
I got to say this here, Michael. Out of all the people, there's nobody worse to me than Ted Cruz. The man called your wife ugly. The man accused your daddy of assassination. And you still kissing his ass? Say, man, look, party unity only goes so far with me.
That ad is I think it's a great ad. And clearly, it always happens in politics. You're able to find something that somebody says that was an ally or an enemy at one time and then is an ally. But I really enjoyed, because I had not seen it. I heard about the Michael Cohen commercial. And that was an interesting too. I don't know if that sways anybody either, because clearly all of Trump's base folks hate him. And I don't know if our folks are going to like him. But it was just an interesting commercial to lay out kind of what he saw in his last decade with 45, before he was 45, and when he was a candidate. But these commercials online have impacts. They just do. Clearly, the paid media has impacts on commercials during the conventions. They just do. Trust me, Roland, you and I have talked about this before. If politicians didn't think commercials would work, they wouldn't spend pretty much almost 60% of their money on them. So it works. And so we'll see what happens on November 3rd. I clearly think that Biden and Harris have a good shot. And I know that folks like to look at the national poll numbers, but it's really just a group of 5 states that folks need to focus on. And when you focus on those poll numbers, clearly the race is going to tighten, but we'll see what happens over the next coming weeks.
All right, folks, back to our Roadmark Unfiltered video in just one moment. As our community comes together to support the fight against racial injustice, I want to take a second to talk about one thing we can do to ensure our voices are heard. Not tomorrow, but now. Have your voices heard in terms of what kind of future we want by taking the 2020 census today at 2020census.gov? Now, folks, let me help you out. The census is a count of everyone living in the country. It happens once every 10 years. It is mandated by the U.S. Constitution. The thing that's important is that the census informs funding, billions of dollars, how they are spent in our communities every single year. I grew up in Clinton Park in Houston, Texas, and we wanted new parks and roads and a senior citizen center. Well, the census helps inform all of that and where funding goes. It also determines how many seats your state will get in the U.S. House of Representatives. Young black men and young children of color are historically undercounted, which means a potential loss of funding for services that helps our community. Folks, we have the power to change that. We have the power to help determine where hundreds of billions in federal funding go each year for the next 10 years. Funding that can impact our community, our neighborhoods, and our families and friends. Folks, responses are 100% confidential and can't be shared with your landlord, law enforcement, or any government agency. So please, take the 2020 census today. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. In America, everyone counts, and the 2020 census is how that great promise is kept. Respond today online, by phone, or by mail, and help inform hundreds of billions in funding for education, health programs, and more. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. Folks, to understand the Republican mindset there, Wisconsin Democrats are urging action on legislation to tweak policing practices, but the special session that was called, y'all gonna let us hear. The Republican-led legislature they brought the session in, gavelled it, done after 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Really? Really? They recess until Thursday. There's no indication the Republican-led legislature is planning to take up the package of 9 bills Governor Tony Evers and Democrats are seeking anytime soon. So let's talk about this. Seriously, Kelly, like Trump really, here's the deal. We know about what happened in Kenosha because what happened to Jacob Blake. And then Trump, with his white supremacist language, which he has been doing for the past several weeks, he's appealing to, let's be clear, white voters in Wisconsin, especially white women, with his comments about the suburbs. We're going to play later some of the crap he said in his interview with Laura Ingraham, which shows you, again, he is all about appealing to white fear in order to get reelected. This was nothing more but a photo op for him to slap law enforcement on the back when law enforcement was the one that put 7 bullets in Jacob Blake's back.
Well, the reason why he's appealing to white supremacists is because that's how he got elected in the first place. I mean, the number 53% isn't going away anytime soon just because it's 2020. If anything, we need to be focused on that number and making sure that it's not such a problem as it was in 2016, or a hidden problem rather, because we all thought that, you know, people would have common sense and not vote this man into office. But you're right about him appealing to this base. It's not surprising to me at all. The fact that he's in Kenosha and didn't say anything about Jacob Blake, that would hold any weight anyway is just peak Trump. I'm not expecting him to suddenly turn over a new leaf only less than 60 days before the election. No, this is what's working for him. This is how he would be reelected again if Democrats don't get their act together and vote him out.
Melik, he goes there not actually concerned about the community or black folks there who are impacted. It's another law enforcement show.
I think that the focus on law enforcement is important. I'm not sure if Donald Trump will be welcomed in the community.
Is that the biggest thing? You say it's important, but is it the most important thing? Because that's what he made this out to be. The grants I mentioned, all about law enforcement. I mean, if you look at what we're talking about, this whole deal is law enforcement, law enforcement, law enforcement, not how do we get law enforcement to stop shooting folks unnecessarily?
Well, I do believe that there was about $1 million for Kenosha's law enforcement there. I think that that's something that actually could be used for the body cams that they decided not to put until the next budget. So I think that it would be great if they could actually use the $1 million for that. But there was an additional $4 million that the administration Trump announced today that will be used for the businesses. And apparently in that area, about 70% of the businesses in the affected area have less than 15 employees. So that $4 million will likely go very, very far. And based on what the gentlemen were saying, most of those people in that community, as far as the business owners in that community, were I don't know if he said black or minority, but they weren't white. So I think that that's something that's definitely a benefit to the community. Again, I'm not sure if the community would have welcomed him. I think we heard today that there were people who chose to have a different event than participate or maybe be around whatever Trump was doing, but that's a choice that he's making. But again, I'm just not sure if the community actually would have been receptive to him coming there to wherever the block party was or anything like that. But the funding is important, and that's something that's definitely benefiting black people apparently in that community.
But isn't that part of the problem that shows his absolute lack of credibility, Mustafa? I mean, look, when George H.W. Bush was president, he actually sat down and met with community leaders after the Rodney King riots. That's what presidents do. This is somebody who frankly has no credibility with black community leaders because of what comes out of his mouth and because of his policies.
Well, it's because he doesn't sit down with black community leaders across the country. He will invite selected folks to the White House whom he knows how they will react and what they will share. You know, working at high levels in the government, I know that whether Democrats or Republicans, if they're serious about connecting with folks, they can do focus roundtables in the community, you know, where they made sure that they were talking to different folks in a controlled environment, which probably would be very important for the current leader of our country. The second part, you know, Melik, I love you, brother, but I think that we also need to really focus on the fact that we have seen through COVID-19 that many black businesses have not been able to benefit from the dollars that have flown through the federal system. So I'm sure people have a pause when they hear about these resources that are supposed to come to the city, if they will actually be able to compete for them. Will they have whatever the criteria that's been set up in place? Will they be able to meet that? And then the third part is, you know, we all know that the president does not care about these communities. This was an opportunity to try and position himself to win the state of Wisconsin. He only won the last time by, I think it's less than 1%. So he knows that he's got a whole lot of work to do, and he's willing to do that work on the backs of the black folks who are fighting for justice.
Kelly.
No, I agree with Mustafa here. It's really sad to see just how low this president will go in terms of pandering and basically bribing the American people for a vote. Because it's not like this money is going to come into Wisconsin tomorrow. This money will be here and not distributed anyway until after the election, just by way of how things work in the federal government. It's not exactly the quickest thing. So it's really kind of like holding a carrot in front of a horse and just trying to entice people to vote for him just for the sake of voting for him, because that's all he wants to do. It's not about government. It's not about leadership. For him, it really is about winning. And it's sad because we need a president. We need a leader, specifically because of COVID and for anything else, because we need to get healthy first before we can even think about, helping the Black community get better, because we're dying because of COVID as well. So we have this president who is really just pandering and at the same time ignoring us. It's really just disgusting to see. But no, I don't have any faith that this president has our best interests at heart. And we definitely need to vote him out come November.
All right, folks, back to our Roadmark Unfiltered video in just one moment. As our community comes together to support the fight against racial injustice, I want to take a second to talk about one thing we can do to ensure our voices are heard. Not tomorrow, but now. Have your voices heard in terms of what kind of future we want by taking the 2020 census today at 2020census.gov? Now, folks, let me help you out. The census is a count of everyone living in the country. It happens once every 10 years. It is mandated by the U.S. Constitution. The thing that's important is that the census informs funding, billions of dollars, how they are spent in our communities every single year. I grew up in Clinton Park in Houston, Texas, and we wanted new parks and roads and a senior citizen center. Well, the census helps inform all of that and where funding goes. It also determines how many seats your state will get in the U.S. House of Representatives. Young Black men and young children of color are historically undercounted, which means a potential loss of funding for services that helps our community. Folks, we have the power to change that. We have the power to help determine where hundreds of billions in federal funding go each year for the next 10 years. Funding that can impact our community, our neighborhoods, and our families and friends. Folks, responses are 100% confidential and can't be shared with your landlord, law enforcement, or any government agency. So please take the 2020 census today. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. right.